This week in comic books, it's all about the tropes. Every trope you can think of was out there, from Kneel before Zod being kind of a Shakespearean play to Moon Knight being something dying and coming back, because nobody dies in comic books. That, a few other tropes this week, but no independence. So let's take a deep dive into these and talk about tropes this week. But first, that's right, Coffee Brand Coffee commercial. Here we go. All right, you bunch of weirdos. Welcome back to another week of comic books. I hope you had a great holiday season. Hope you had a fantastic new year. So we're just going to jump right into this with Batman number 44. I went with this particular Joker cover because at this point, the story doesn't really mean anything to me. It's just something that exists that I have to read now because I got started. And the reason is it's not that it is bad. It's just very hard to explain. Let me try. So Batman has other multiple Batmans in the, we'll just say metaverse at this point, because it doesn't really matter, multiverse, whatever. There's several of them that exist. They were in his head. Now they've been extracted out of his head and put into a robot named Failsafe. Failsafe is actually nothing new. It's something that Batman built back in the day to kind of take his place if he ever, got... Right? And now one of them needs to dominate or rule over the other because only one person could be in charge of a Batman army. That's cool fight scenes. It sounds stupid, but I am enjoying it. I just dread explaining it and reviewing this comic book because it sounds dumb. I'm sorry. There's some gimmicky moments in it, and there's the obvious tropes that, like personality traits or individual persons in this, right? That comic books do that a lot. A lot of troping this week, so get ready for that. So that's kind of the thing in here, like the old school goofy one's kind of an old school goofy one. The older Batman is the mature and most smartest one, so he should be in charge. And then, of course, there's a fight, and it's really just the most aggressive Batman, which, again, are all just traits of Batman, but we're just kind of telling them in this linear story. Yeah, so at the end, Batman is in prison, and next to him is, of course, the Joker, who kicked off this whole story arc, so I was kind of wondering when we were going to get around to that. And, of course, the Grey Shadow Lady, one of Batman's mentors from back in the day. There you go. That little bit happened in like over 16 pages in this book because most of it was the battle against the robot, and honestly, that's what saved this book for me this week. Otherwise, I would have just dropped it. Okay, moving on. Kneel before Zod. Okay, so I went with this kind of shiny cover here because I really didn't want to pick this up. I'm kind of Zodded out, if to be honest with you, because anything DC does now, they have to bring back that entire scene of Batman and Zod fight, and I'm just kind of Zodded out at this point. But what is this book? It's a Shakespearean tale. You should know that going into this, right? And I don't mean Shakespearean as in it takes you on an emotional roller coaster of, a romance story, action, comedy, a little bit of horror, right? Like Shakespeare used to write about. That's why his plays were so good, right? They kind of took you through an emotional roller coaster as you went through them. No, this doesn't do that. This is basically a king, and he has thrown away his son because can't live up to his standards of whatever his standards are. Don't matter, right? So the kid is banished, and apparently he's returning with a horde army to come battle daddy. That's the story in a nutshell, right? Mom kind of plays a very passive role in this, much like Shakespearean plays do, where the woman kind of takes a back seat and then eventually poisons somebody. I may have just spoiled this story. You should know that now, because I feel that's where this is going. It's just, it's Hamlet in space. New Kindar. Okay, moving on. We got Spider-Man 2099. Now, forgive me, all my Spider-Man 29, or all the 2099 fans out there for whatever character you're going to have to forgive me a little bit here. Like, help me out just a little bit. This is a zombie story, and it's nothing more than that. We're doing this thing where we're allowing zombies in comic books now. It's becoming a little bit of a trope itself, where the comic books are able to keep their personality and their mental capacities, just everything, and they're just super aggressive animals at this point, right? Which kind of throws away the whole monster genre thing, and I'll explain that in a second. Just sit back. So in this one, Spider-Man 2099's mom, who kind of has an estranged relationship with, right, gets infected with this new type of virus that was invented because a guy had an issue and he hates everybody, so he creates the virus, puts it onto the poor people, and now we got a zombie outbreak. Bob kind of affects his mother, so all in all, the typical thing happens, right? They find a cure for him, mom gets saved, but the main focus here seems to be the relationship between Spider 2099 mom and him, and them trying to figure out, you know, I'm a bad mother, and I don't know if I like you or not, and there's this kind of thing, back and forth thing, right? Because everything else in this book is nothing more than a MacGuffin that's being used. So what did I mean that it's kind of breaking the trope of the zombie thing? So when we see zombies or any monster, right? When we talk about monsters inside of movies, like vampires are usually a story about some sort of addiction, right? They love the blood, blah, right? A werewolf is the primal parts of you that want to yell and scream or howl at the moon, not mule. Don't howl at mules. They'll just laugh at you. Don't do that, right? And then Frankenstein's always about judging a book by its cover, right? Because he never did anything wrong, but the people kind of saw it, blah, 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 right? So, and zombies have always been about consumerism, right? But as we become more of a technical society and we become smarter, right? You see where they kind of went with this? And I think that's great. I think that makes sense, right? We're not slow, dumb zombies just eating fast food or just purchasing things slowly, right? Everything that we could possibly want happen here and now, and if we don't get it, we get aggressive. I think this is a good take of a modernizing zombies now. So I'm kind of on board with that portion of it. Moving on to our next comic book, Moon Knight, #1. So what better way to kill a character and then bring him back? The problem is that we brought him back way too fast in this case. Like, he's literally back in this book right here. #1, we talked about how he did. Reese, the vampire, addiction, right? She's an addict for blood. Good thing to keep in mind, right? Is kind of back, and she's running the Midnight Mission, a 501c3 of homeless slash counseling slash, I don't really know what they do. If you know, like, I read the series throughout first, and I know why they started the Midnight Mission, but it doesn't really explain what the Midnight Mission does. Is it like home? Like, they're a protection agency? Sure, they go around and beat people up that are being bad to the poor people in the area. That's it. They're, I don't know. The New York Guardians, maybe? I'm not really sure. It doesn't really matter, though. Reese, our vampire, is in charge of it. And, of course, the usual trope of friends are in there trying to help her to get along and through all of this, right? And it's great. But Moon Knight comes back. And only problem is that he doesn't remember that who used to be his enemy, then became his friend, doesn't realize that they're his enemies. He thinks so he's fighting them. Like he does, like, for an instance, 8-Ball. Horrible name for a comic book villain, by the way. Right? 8-Ball eventually started working with Moon Knight, and then he comes back from the dead, right? 'Cause you can't kill an avatar of a god. He comes back and beats the holy hell out of him. So we're kind of doing this thing where we're kind of like rebooting Moon Knight, I guess, to some degree, but he's got the amnesia. The great soap opera trope right there. Yet another trope. It's very tropey this week. Luckily, it was a slow week. All right, next, we get Beware of Planet of the Apes. Got the Scotty Young cover. So wife's super happy on this one. So now I got to read it. So I read it, and it's exactly what I thought it would be. It's pretty predictable, given its title. It's Planet of the Apes. Apes find monkeys. Humans, in this case, right? Humans are kind of like the version of a monkey. They feed them and kind of play to their more primal urges. They find one that is a female, and she kind of takes them on a quest, and they go see what we would see in modern day today only as relics in the future, right? So like Yankee Stadium, a subway, right? This kind of if you watched Planet of the Apes, the original movie, which I highly suggest watching, by the way, it still holds up. It still holds up. But if you watch it, that movie, and you kind of remember the end, right, with the whole Statue of Liberty kind of thing, that was supposed to be what was in this. But I guess the expectation is that people that read this comic book never saw that movie. I guess. So just go watch the movie. It's so much easier. Okay, moving on. Last book. It's very small week for me this week. I apologize, but there just wasn't that much out there for me. Fantastic Four, right? We got number 15 here. This is an interesting thing. So, again, still the smartest comic book out there, because they're literally taking things from the past. First, it opens up a very famous speech. It was something called like the China brain. Really, it's kind of almost racist, but really what you're thinking about here is a more hive mind type of concept, right? Where all of our knowledge and everything can get stored up into some sort of digital format, right? Like the internet or ChatGPT or AI, whatever you want to look at it, right? And it ultimately becomes all-knowing and finds a way to communicate with us, right? Because things have to take time in order to process, to learn. Think of the way if you wanted to speak another language, right? Yes, computers and stuff like that can do it faster, but it still takes some time. Side note, just quick side note, and I apologize for this. Stop being mad if the phone doesn't work as fast as you want it to. Stop doing that, because that signal's got to go all the way to space and come back down, connect to a tower, and then come back to you. Like it hits a tower, hits a space, comes back. Like that might take a second. So just, chill out. I'm tired of hearing people screaming out their phone to hurry up. Anyway, same concept here, right? Finally, Reed Richards finds out why it kind of starts understanding that this thing is not malicious in any way, right? It's learning, right? Best way to think of it, right? Kind of beat that one trope where two heroes fight each other because of perception, right? Great trope, right? So, but it's a reaction to trying not to die because of Reed Richards not understanding what this is going on, kind of prevents the Reed family's children from being brought back on time. Remember, they went away into a little pocket dimension thing where they had to time travel around the Earth so many times before the building came back that the kids were in. I know, it's weird, but that's what happened. So at the end, the computers actually starts getting dumbing down because somebody hacked the system and kind of filled it up with a virus sort of thing to kind of shut it down. Somebody who, again, wasn't open-minded enough to understand the situation that was going on that Reed was actually trying to fix. In other words, a jackass sticking his nose where it doesn't belong. You may know people like that. Okay? So eventually what happens is the computer ends up going away, but its last act of, hey, I get it, this was just a big understanding, the kids are back now. So the Fantastic Four family and the Grimm family have been reunited with their children to kind of hopefully go live a great life. And that's my comic book haul and review for this week. Definitely let me know what comic books you got. Which ones did I miss? I was going to pick up the X-Men one. I was going to, because they launched off another issue 1 on it. But again, I was just like, I'm jaded by it. So if you read it, let me know what was in it. I'll see if I can't read it online, along with anything else. A lot of the things you guys recommend, I actually do go online and read. I want to thank Miss So and a few other people out there. Real quick, you guys have recommended some books. I finally got caught up on all your recommendations. And as always, just great stuff, guys. You guys always recommend the best stuff. Flash by Night, Miss So, Gore Vidal. All of you have done that. Also, check out Ms. So, Nocturnal Ms. So's channel. I made her a Thor hammer like almost 2 years ago. And she's finally popping off videos on her own channel. Now, look, if you're a member of the community and you've seen Miss So in the chats, you owe it to her to go over there and see what she's up to, right? Subscribe. God knows she supported all of us. So please consider that. Going over there and showing a little love, right? That's what it's all about. All right, guys, I got nothing else. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I'm going to finish this one early for you so you can get back to your day. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.